Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters, and welcome to this week's live chat. I'm super glad you're joining me for a afternoon of just talking about my favorite thing, machine quilting. If you're joining me live, Jessica's here as normal behind the camera, monitoring the chat, writing down your questions, so be sure to put those in the comments and she'll give them to me at the end. I'm excited to talk a little bit about arced shape rulers, which the more I say the word arc, the weirder it sounds in my head, so I'm gonna start feeling weird about it, but excited to talk about tips on how to use them and some designs that you can create with them. Before we get into it though, just a little bit of updates. I'm actually gonna be out of town the next 2 weeks, so I won't be doing a live chat the next 2 weeks, but then when I come back, we will resume our topic about rulers, finish those out with a couple more live chats, and then start a new topic. So I'm excited to do that. I will miss you all the next 2 weeks, but I'll be back going out of town with the family for spring break, so it'll be kind of fun. Anyway, so we're going to talk about arc rulers, and like I said in my previous live chats, not every ruler is for every quilter, but whether you're a brand new machine quilter or more established in your journey, quilting with rulers is really helpful. And you know, in one chat I talked about straight line rulers. Last week we talked about wavy rulers, and then this week we're going to talk about arcs. Now, the thing about arced rulers is they're going to help us quilt those bigger curves. It's really hard, for me anyway, to sustain a curved line and have it look even on both sides. So this is going to be perfect for those of you that want that nice curve, but also maybe work on bigger blocks or bigger motif type designs, but also if you're wanting a little bit of help with that. Now, like all the other rulers on the market, there's a million different arc shape rulers. I just grabbed a couple, as an example. Different sizes, different configurations. Sometimes they have the same curve on both sides, which is nice if you have to quilt from both sides of the foot. This one has a little, cutout. You could use the inner part as well. As far as size goes, in general, I would aim for a little bit bigger arced ruler. I mean, unless you always do smaller blocks, just because it's a lot easier to fit a bigger ruler in a smaller space than it is to extend out a smaller ruler. When I did the Machine Quilting with Rulers Free Motion Challenge video series, which is kind of what I'm recapping a little bit, I showed how to use arc rulers in a video, and we saw some different designs with it. But at the time, I hadn't had my Smiley ruler. So Smiley is also an arc ruler. We'll see some more examples of this. It might not look like your typical one, but it does have two different sized arcs on either side, and it has those needle stops as well. So a little bit of a different look, but same basic idea. Now let's go through and see some different ideas with it. When I do a machine quilting tutorial or a video, I try to keep it fairly to the point. I don't like to go on and on. I like to keep it pretty entertaining. And so sometimes in the videos, maybe tips or other designs don't maybe get shared, or maybe I think of something later on. And so even though these videos came out a couple years ago, it's always fun to recap them and go over them. Like I said, if you want to learn how to machine quilt with rulers, I have a whole free video series on my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. Each video highlights a different type of ruler. You don't have to have any set kind of rulers to do it. And I show you how to quilt it on a sewing machine and a long arm. I really think it's really worth learning, no matter, like I said, where you are on your quilting journey. So this is the quilt that I quilted throughout that video series, and you can see all the different designs and different types of rulers we used throughout it. But it's just a fun way to practice and to get better. Somebody said in the type chat before I went live that they were scared to join the challenge, and I'm like, oh, it's so much more fun to learn something new with other quilters, because it's something about joined misery that just makes it not seem so bad. So not saying that it's miserable, it's a lot of fun, but you know how it is. Other quilters will be like, oh, I want to take this class, come take it with me, and you go do it because you want to do it with other people. So it's just a lot of fun. Anyway, when you're looking at your arc rulers, again, there's so many different options. I just pulled a picture of Handy Quilters arc rulers there and a picture of Smiley. Again, I think it's good to have one or two in your stash, just because if you want to do those bigger curves. But sometimes it can be hard to think about what you can do with these rulers, right? Because it's like, oh, what can I? So I just pulled some pictures and some other examples, and mostly this is not me showing off how great I am. This is me trying to get you to give it a shot. Give you some inspiration. So if you're looking at your arc rulers that you have laying around and you're like, I have no idea what to do with them, well, hopefully this will give you some inspiration. As far as actually quilting with the ruler, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. similar to quilting with any other straight edge ruler or anything like that, I would just take your time as you're working along it and keep your fingers close to the ruler. If you want to watch how to do that though, be sure to check out those videos because I go into detail with that. But first of all, probably most obviously, they're great for quilting those larger curves. Like I've already kind of said, it's not easy to sustain that curve without a ruler over a big area, just because you're trying to move fluidly through that. So I definitely like having them around. But you don't have to quilt, exactly the shape that you're given. I always say, you may have paid for the whole ruler, but you don't have to use it all, or you can use it in a little bit different ways. So in this example, you can see a couple sizes of arcs. Those are the sizes that you can get with the Smiley ruler. But like I said, as you're working through the quilts, if you're dealing with an area that's not quite the right size, you can finagle it a little bit once you get comfortable with it. So I was trying to find pictures of quilting, and I show quilted examples because I think it's so good to see it on an actual quilt. I mean, at least that's how I think. I get kind of inspired by it. I can kind of like apply that to other quilts, and so this quilt was the most recent one on which I used the arc ruler or Smiley. It's great for quilting curves, like I already said, and you can use it in some different configurations to create different shapes. So in this example, instead of just quilting that curve like this, I quilted it out to a point and then quilted on to the other side, which you can see here in the next picture. So you can use it in other ways. So as you're working through your quilts, try repositioning it, try moving it around, try using just half of it. You'll be surprised the different designs that you can come out with. Because when you look at this shape, I wouldn't maybe necessarily think, oh, that was the Smiley ruler that did it, but the repositioning of it is what created that. So again, really fun way to use a ruler in different ways. This is, by the way, the Radiance quilt, because usually people want to know the pattern, and I already had the picture done, so I thought I would throw it up here. My most recent English paper piecing quilt. Now, don't be super impressed, because the middle of it is like this big, right? It still took me like 3 years to make, but finished, is better than perfect. All right, so beyond those curved lines, what can we do with those? I'm so glad you asked. I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat, right? Motifs are usually what I kind of think of. Using those curved lines in all different directions to create a motif or a self-contained block design. That's gonna be perfect for those bigger blocks, or if you have smaller blocks that you're joining together. So even if you're like, oh, I'm never gonna quilt a block that needs a curve that big, you can use it to join multiple blocks together as well. Now in this example, you can see how I've quilted the curves in different sizes around those blocks. Again, it just depends on the size of the arc that you're working with, how curved it is, right? Because some arcs are a little bit, more curved than others. But changing up the position, rotating it, is really gonna help create that motif. I also like it for curved echoing. So in this example, in this block, I just quilted a motif that kind of radiates from the center, or from the corner, as opposed to the center. Slightly different look, and that means that the curves are gonna need to be a little bit bigger. But if my ruler doesn't quite fill up the whole area, right? Because that's always the thing. You could have 20 different sizes of rulers, but you're probably still gonna get that block that doesn't quite fit. You can always use echoing to build up that design, like you can see around here, or even another filler to fill it in. So don't feel like you have to have, that perfect size. This is an example of maybe using a ruler that's too small in a bigger area. So if that's the case, instead of really trying to extend it, which you can in little bits, I prefer to add some echoing to build it up and some filler. But regardless of how you use it, it's gonna help you quilt those nice curved lines. Now you can also use it for border designs. This might not seem so obvious at first, but what we're doing is instead of using the outer curve, we're using the top point, right? So we're using this half of the ruler. That kind of goes along with the joke, you might have paid for the whole ruler, but you don't have to use the whole thing. But here we can kind of see that idea. Instead of quilting all the way around the curve, I'm positioning the ruler so that I'm just quilting over half of it. Now, in an earlier live chat, I mentioned that if your ruler doesn't have the reference lines that you want, you can put glow line tape or some kind of, packing or painter's tape, something on there to use as a reference line. And that's exactly what I could do in this example. I could figure out where it is I want, that line to start, put a piece of tape there, and use that as my reference line along the bottom edge of the area. And what I'm doing here is just going up one side, turning the ruler to the other side, and then coming down. And what that's going to give me is that arched shape, but it's going to be more like a pointy kind of look here. Now we could get the same design idea from smaller rulers like Taj, which is kind of shaped just like that. But this is just showing how you can use that ruler in different ways. I don't think you have to use a ruler in 25 different ways, but once you get comfortable trying some different variations, you might just find that one, that one design that helps it kind of click for you. And then for even more intricate looking quilting, you can overlap and offset those arcs for a nice border design. So great option for you there. Another thing you could use it for is wavy lines. Now this might not seem like something that seems obvious, and you might already have a wavy line ruler, but if you're wanting to create a wavy design, we're basically quilting those arcs in alternating directions. We're just quilting one, flipping the ruler around, and quilting the other, and so it's going to create that wave. Now, in that example, the picture before, those were cables and they're kind of overlapped, but this idea is that you can use it to create a slightly different shape. Now, I actually just filmed a couple tutorials yesterday on both of these designs using the smiley ruler, which I'll be releasing in the next couple weeks. So you can see exactly how that goes together. But using your rulers in a lot of different ways will really help you get the most out of them. It's one thing to spend money on a ruler, but if you can only use it for one little thing, then maybe that's not the most efficient idea. Just a thought here. And then also different sizes. It's funny because combining multiple sizes can give you some different looks as well. So, with a smiley ruler, I have two sizes on there, or even on the Handy Quilter, the two cutouts makes a different size. Sometimes having a couple different sizes and combining them with each other can create a cool design. Now, we can see here a couple different options. Now, this top one is just, the curves going in different directions, two different sizes to create that shape. Now, I know that shape by itself is not like stunning, but it'd be a great strip or great design for maybe a strip fabric, or if I took that shape and quilted it again in other directions, I can make it into a different looking motif. So definitely not only try using different parts of the ruler, but try combining different sizes and rotating it and seeing what you can come up with. And then the picture below is like a leafy kind of shape, where we're basically, I just quilted a bigger arc and then put a smaller one inside of it, and then used another arc to move on to the next one. Again, there's so many different things you can do, and not every design is going to be exactly for you or the quilts that you're working on. So you might look at it and be like, oh, I don't want to do that. But when you find those designs that you like, it can be really awesome. Now, I decided, since I have some tutorials coming up and we thought we'd do a little live chat promo, I'm going to give you 20% off the Smiley ruler if you haven't already purchased it. So use the promo code SMILEY, and there's a link in the description box that you can click to purchase it. If you already have a Smiley ruler and you're not sure how to use it, or you want to learn a little bit more about arc rulers, you can check out the free quilting diagrams I have for the Smiley ruler as well. And those are linked in the description box as well. It has step-by-step illustrations on how to create the designs I'm showing, but also like what you could do with those arc rulers. So again, I know that's a little bit of a quick show and tell. Normally I have way more pictures, but for some reason, as much as I think I use arcs, I didn't have a lot of good quilted examples of them. But the thing to remember, though, is you can use it in a lot of different ways, whether it's as a block design, a border design, or even an all-over background design, which I think is pretty amazing when you can get the more versatility out of that. So hopefully, if you've been hesitant about quilting with rulers or hesitant about quilting with arced rulers, maybe that will give you the little inspiration to give it a shot. Now again, I know that's kind of quick, and I see Jessica does have a couple questions. There were a couple chat or questions that came through the type chat before I started, so I just want to talk about those. If you watch me live, if you get on about half an hour before, I get on there about 2:30 Central Time and type chat with everybody, and it's a really fun way just to, I don't know, hang out before the live chat. So if you're not watching live, no worries, you can leave your questions and stuff in the comments. I still get on there from time to time and check those out, so it's a lot of fun. But when we were on the type chat, D asked how to master the meander. And so the meander is like this line that just kind of curves around. And the thing about the meander is it's different for everybody, but the thing that helps me, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, I told her, I said, I'll answer it live. I'll answer it because I can talk through it. But when I'm quilting my meander, the thing that helps me go in all different directions is if I want to go left, I make myself go all different directions before I go left. So I'll go up, maybe to the right, down a little bit, and then left. So I'm imagining taking the most inefficient way to where I need to go. And that's what really kind of helps it click for me. But that being said, if the meanders or any design is one that you're struggling with, or it's just, not quite clicking right, just keep at it, keep drawing it, and it will come with practice. But that's what finally helped me get the meander there. All right, and then somebody else asked, why is it so hard to find low shank rulers? So one of the things I talk about in the video series is the type of rulers. When you're quilting on a long arm or a high shank sewing machine, you need a thicker ruler. And the thicker ruler just prevents it from sliding under the foot. But some sewing machines have a low shank, and the shank is just what the foot connects to. And on a low shank sewing machine, you can't fit that thicker ruler under it. So those type of machines need thinner rulers. Now, I don't know why it's difficult to find them, but if I had to guess, it's because all long arms use the thicker rulers, and about half of the sewing machines use the thicker rulers as well. So there's more of a, I don't know, like a audience for that. But there are a lot of good low shank rulers. I know we have a couple on our website, and there's other low shank rulers as well. So once you find them, then you're good to go. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting question. I thought, oh, I never really thought through that. All right, how can I maintain control when going on the downside of arcs or waves? Okay, so as you're moving through a design, especially with an arc shape or a wavy ruler, you're kind of going different directions on that ruler, and that point of contact is changing. The analogy I have here is if this was the foot of my machine, it's going to be touching at a different point here than over here. And so what happens is sometimes we tend to like veer off of that. That will work itself out with practice. That's going to be the case no matter which ruler you're working with. You'll be quilting and like it'll look fine, and all of a sudden it'll just veer off here. So that will help. But another thing is sometimes we do better in one direction or the other, right? So if I'm going, away from me, that might be easier than towards me. And so when that's the case, instead of being discouraged, look at it as though you're halfway there, right? You've got one direction down, you just got to get comfortable with the other. If you're quilting on a sewing machine, the one advantage you have is you can easily change the orientation of your quilt. So if you wanted to, you could quilt this way on your ruler, turn your quilt and do it again and get that different image. Now, on a long arm, it's totally different, right? I've got to be able to work from all sides of the foot, and I can't change the orientation of the quilt. So that's going to take practice, but ultimately it will get easier, I promise. I have a long arms and a sit down machine. Do my videos apply to both machines? Yes. So most designs in quilting, I always say they go together the same way. It's just how you apply them on a long arm or a sewing machine. The act of holding a ruler is a little bit different on a sewing machine and a long arm. But once you get the hang of that, then yeah, you can do them on either one. And in my videos, I show both ways. So I usually show more on the sewing machine just because it goes together a little bit slower, and then we show a little bit on the long arm. So they do apply to both. Did I mark the Radiance quilt? Were I marking the Radiance quilt? So that was the EPP quilt that I showed out. Yes. So I did a whole live chat about that. It's been, gosh, a couple months ago, been a while. But I took kind of some process pictures, so go back and check that out because you'll see kind of how that whole quilt evolved. Because when you look at the finished quilt, it's really hard to see where anything started. So I did mark out reference points. So when you saw me using that smiley ruler to create that arc shape, I actually marked the dot above a seam, and that was my reference point. So I marked those reference points to then quilt the shapes. And they weren't exactly perfect, but they were symmetrical and it looked fine. So check that out, because yeah, then after I quilted that first, ring around the radiance, I did the next one by marking those reference lines. And even in the live chat, I show you how I use like a little paper template to kind of place some of the designs. So hopefully that makes some sense. It was kind of fun to do that because I think it was like a 2-part live chat. I kind of showed some step-by-step pictures. I'm usually not the best of remembering to take photos while I'm quilting because I'm just so happy to be quilting. I usually have my headphones on and I'm just like zoning out. So, but that one I actually did. So, do I sketch out all of my quilting area plans? It depends, which is usually my answer for everything, right? It depends. In the beginning, I would have definitely marked out more of the designs and stuff, but now I can kind of envision what that would look like. I can kind of imagine, oh, if I put a feather here or what have you. But if I'm struggling with the designs, I can't decide what to quilt, which happens. I'm sorry to say, no matter how long you've been quilting, those certain quilts will still show their ugly, or not ugly head, that didn't sound right. Those will still pop up from time to time where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to quilt this. I like to joke that none of the quilts have ever talked to me. Some people are like, I'm waiting for the quilt to talk to me. And I'm always like, well, no quilts ever talk to me, and I have been drinking a lot around them. well, maybe not a lot, but you know what I mean. So it's sometimes it's hard to know what to do. So in that instance, I'll take a picture of the quilt top on my phone, and my phone has a little pen, and so then I'll draw the design on the picture just to kind of visualize, and I'll push that one away and I'll try another one. And I think in the live chat I showed some pictures I drew because I was stumped on that Radiance quilt, because I talked about I wasn't sure exactly what to do in each row, and so I would, you know, kind of audition. And even in the live chat you see where I took out some quilting, which is like crazy, but from time to time you try it and it doesn't quite look like you like it. So yes, well, that was a very long answer to your question, but I do sketch out designs or plans for the quilts from time to time for sure. So hopefully that made you want to try quilting with some arc rulers. I know when I get done talking, I don't ever want somebody to be like, well, that doesn't look like fun, and I don't want to try that. So hopefully you're inspired to give those arc rulers a try. Like I said, I will be gone the next 2 weeks, but in the meantime, you can get yourself the Smiley ruler using that promo code or clicking the link in the description box, or be sure to download those free quilting diagrams. That's just how I like to learn. I like to have the paper next to me with the step-by-step, and so I put those together because I love you and I want you guys to use them. So be sure to check those out as well. Well, enjoy the weather. Hopefully you're having nice weather wherever you're at. Hopefully you're safe and everything's going well. Like I said, I'll be back in a couple weeks. Enjoy the rest of the month, and I will see you next month for the live chat. Until then, everybody, happy